Hello archers, it's Nogdro here. Today we're looking at archery in Delta Force. Delta Force is a free-to-play multiplayer tactical shooter game released in 2025, developed by Team Jade. It's available on PC, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, iOS and Android. Delta Force has two main game modes. The first one is a massive PvP mode called Warfare, where two teams of players go in as attackers or defenders and take over different parts of a map. You can also board different vehicles like tanks, assault vehicles, ATVs, helicopters, boats and fighter jets. This is the more action-packed chaotic game mode, but also the more forgiving, since you don't have much to lose other than ranks and stats. There is infinite respawn, but at the cost of score points. There is also an experience system to level up and unlock different weapons, attachments and skins. The other main game loop is an extraction PvP/PvE mode called Operations, where several teams of 3 drop on a map and try to compete for the rarest and most valuable loot. All the gear and weapons you bring into a run are lost if you die, so this is a high risk, high reward mode. On top of searching for the best loot and trying to make it out alive, there are numerous quests to complete in this mode. There is also a dedicated boss and a hot zone area on every map. Completing quests and finding specific items allows you to upgrade your military base called the Black Site. The Black Site is used to craft weapons and gear which you can use in rounds or sell. Some of the upgrades can even have positive effects over your character, like increasing the maximum amount of stamina or the weight they can carry, how long can they hold their breath underwater and others. The Operations mode features a whole complex economy system where every item costs money. It features an auction house where players can buy or sell items at the price that they choose. There is also a collection room where you can display pieces of the rarest loot in the game. With the risk of losing all your gear and loot upon death, this mode emphasizes tactics and teamwork. Delta Force also has a single-player campaign based on the 1993 Black Hawk Down events. However, the campaign is mostly designed for co-op play with 4 people. Most of the reviews on it are on the negative side due to the fact that the campaign is a bit difficult for solo players. In addition, there are several variations and smaller game modes and limited time events. The game features multiple playable characters called Operators. The Operators fall into 4 different classes: Assault, Support, Recon and Engineer. Each class has its strengths and situational benefits, and each operator has a set of unique abilities, with one main as an ultimate and 3 others. The abilities range from movement skills like sprinting for a set amount of time, sliding, jumping with no fall damage, healing your teammates, to numerous throwables like frag, EMP, smoke and fire grenades, sticky bombs, flashbangs, tracking discs, drones, sonic traps, knives, recon gadgets and more. With that said, let's focus on the archery aspect of the game. Delta Force introduced a bow in Season 5 in July 2025. It's a modern compound bow. There are several skins for it, and all of them are unlockable via in-game currency, mostly tied to real-life money. In the Warfare mode, there are some restrictions to the bow. You can only use it with the Assault and Recon operators. In Operations, there are no restrictions as long as you can buy or craft the bow. The game features a weapon modification and calibration mechanic that lets you tune different parts of your weapon to your liking, for example adjusting the scope, the stock, the barrel and so on. However, for the bow there are only a few attachments that can be interchanged, but no calibration whatsoever. There is an extensive details section that shows the exact stats and the effects of the attachments, as well as a practice range where you can test your modifications. In terms of the actual attachments, we have the option to choose between 2 different types of limbs. light that increase the handling and reduce the hipfire spread but reduce stability, and heavy which increase the stability and reduce the ADS spread. We can attach one type of sights on the bow which provides additional zoom and changes the crosshair. We have the option to attach an enhanced string that increases the draw speed and the range of the bow, as well as the velocity of the arrows and the headshot damage, but the price of the string is 3 times the price of the bow itself. We have 2 different stabilizer options, a professional stabilizer that increases stability and handling at the cost of accuracy, and a competition stabilizer that increases accuracy and handling at the cost of stability. We also have 2 different pistol grip handles to choose from, an enhanced grip that increases accuracy and a balanced grip that increases stability and handling at the cost of accuracy. Lastly, we have the option to buy a competition arrow rest that increases the knocking speed, the range and the arrow velocity, once again at the price that's 2 times the cost of the bow. The attachments can really change the characteristics of the bow in a very noticeable way, however, especially in the operations game mode, the price of a fully modified bow is a bit high. With the economy element of the mode and the intrinsic gear fear of extraction shooters, going in a round with a bow that costs $500,000 only to lose it when you get killed, especially with the ridiculous amount of cheaters in the game, cannot be easily overlooked. Even with the crafting mechanic in the black site, you can only craft the bow and the arrows, but you still need to actually buy the attachments, and they are the more expensive ones. There are 3 different types of arrows in Delta Force, although as any other ammo type, they only differ in their tier. Basically, they have different armor penetration fall-off stats against the different tiers of armor. There is no different feeling to them in terms of shooting. Arrows are craftable in the black site workbench. Different items are required to craft each type, but you can find them in-game or buy them from the auction house. The arrow drop-off in Delta Force is minimal, given that we are using a modern and powerful compound bow. It becomes noticeable at around 100 meters. However, there is a much more significant weapon sway, especially when we hip fire. As you can see, even though we are aiming exactly at the head of the practice dummy, most of the arrows fly left and right and we miss. This is a mechanic that applies to all weapons in the game. There is an option to hold your breath so that your arms are steady while you fire. In addition, some of the attachments also help with the stability and reducing the weapon sway. In the case of the bow, if we just aim down the sights, the weapon sway becomes much less potent. There is no noticeable travel time, so you don't really need to lead your shots. In terms of arrow impact, there are visual and audio effects. Upon hit, you see a crosshair indicator and hear a very distinct sound. Upon kill, you hear a loud thunder-like noise that is identical between all weapons. When you crack an enemy's armor, you also get a specific indicator and sound. In addition, when arrows hit different materials, you can hear a realistic sound effect. The knocking animation in Delta Force is, as in most games, a bit on the speedy side. The popular Mediterranean style is used, with the arrow on the left side of the bow. Knocking the arrow happens with tilting the bow to the right and placing the arrow on top of it. The sounds are immersive. When we draw, we hear the arrow sliding on the bow, and there is a very distinct click when we reach full draw. The actual firing sound is a bit loud and noisy, but I guess that's on purpose to not make the bow too stealthy. There is a shot cancelling mechanic. You can do a melee attack with your knife or switch to another weapon to cancel your shot. However, both of these make a noise, so you can expose your position to your enemies, which is something you really want to avoid, especially in operations. We cannot pick up our arrows in Delta Force, we only have as much as we bring in our backpack, unless we find and kill another bow player. We cannot talk about archery in Delta Force without mentioning Luna. Luna Kim is a recon operator and her abilities are mostly about archery. Two of her skills use a bow that she intrinsically carries regardless of what weapons you play with. The first one is the detection arrow that shows and tracks the position of enemies for a certain amount of time. The second is the vault arrow, which does damage over time and is really useful to kill the AI enemies or to hold down an angle or a hallway. In addition, all the skins, name cards and other cosmetics exclusive to Luna are heavily archery themed. She is a very popular choice when players pick the recon class. In Warfare, the compound bow is an absolute menace at short to medium ranges. Most of the times you can one-shot people and it's very satisfying or annoying depending on which side of the arrow you're on. At longer distances it's still very potent, however in those situations you're mostly out in the open and there are usually multiple snipers miles away from you, so it's a bit risky. In operations, the bow is very strong but also very punishing if you miss a shot. Since it's the more tactical mode of the game, opponents are more careful, there's a lot more staying behind cover, slowly covering angles and carefully moving through the map. The extraction element, the risk of losing all your gear upon that, also adds to people being more cautious. However, the economy element is what really holds the bow back in operations. A fully kitted bow costs $500,000, which is the price of many fully modified rifles that have close to zero recoil, fast firing rate and time to kill. Getting a kill with those is much easier, while with the bow, if you miss a shot, you are in a really bad situation. Also, it seems a bit rare to come across another bow user, so getting a bow for free after a kill doesn't happen as often. Overall, archery in Delta Force is well implemented. The game simulates the mechanics of a compound bow in a good way via the draw and the release mechanics. The bow model is realistic, which fits the serious military theme. However, the compound bow is a bit of an off-meta weapon, it seems like not many players are using it. It's very fun in Warfare, especially if you just go in to have a good time and not take anything too serious. In addition, the game itself is ridden with cheaters. The developers are trying to address them. For example, in operations, if a reported player is confirmed to be cheating, you receive back the gear you lost when they killed you. But with the price of the bow, the amount of cheaters and the time it takes to get your loot back, it's a bit on the expensive side to run a bow unless you're very successful with your extractions. Now let's see some action with the compound bow.
neutralized! Target down! Target eliminated!
Situation is critical. Stand your ground, defend and hold strong.
Enemy neutralized!
Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, stay on target and I'll catch you in the next one.